Helen tore off a strip of duct tape and placed it over her mouth. Then she pulled a plastic bag over her head and sealed it tightly around her neck. To fight the instinct to survive, she handcuffed her hands behind her back and lay quietly on the floor. As the oxygen ran out, the plastic bag clung to her face, and she began to struggle in agony from the suffocation. But Helen wasn't trying to end her life. She was trying to save a man who had been convicted of rape and murder 6 years ago. The man, David, was a college philosophy professor accused of raping and killing his colleague and friend, Annie. The case dominated headlines at the time. David was arrested soon after, and at first, he didn't offer any explanation. He was ultimately sentenced to death and has been on death row ever since, awaiting execution. But just 5 days before his scheduled execution, David suddenly claimed he was innocent and had been framed. The case, once considered closed, was thrust back into the spotlight. David requested an interview with a magazine, but with a strange condition. He specifically asked for a female reporter, and that reporter was Helen.
Why do they want me?
You're telling me you don't want the assignment?
No, I'm not saying that. I just can't see why a guy on death row about to be executed should suddenly ask for me.
I think they like the kiddie porn piece you did and going to jail and stuff. I don't know. Maybe he saw your picture and thinks you're kind of cute.
With time running out, Helen and her assistant immediately hit the road. On the way, they reviewed David's case files. His traces were found all over the crime scene. A large amount of his DNA was discovered in the victim's body, and neighbors reported seeing him leave Annie's home on the night of the murder. Helen didn't believe he was innocent, but her assistant had doubts. For someone as educated as David, how could he leave behind so much evidence? It seemed too sloppy, and the two argued over this on the way. When they arrived at the prison, Helen began the interview with David. Her first question was the one that bothered her most. Why had he specifically requested her?
I'm not David Gale. I'm a murderer and a rapist, 4 days shy of his execution. You're here because I want to be remembered as much for how I led my life, and the decisions that I made, as for how my life ended.
David explained that 6 years ago, while giving a lecture, he was interrupted by a chronically late student, Annie. He ignored her at the time to stay on track with the class. But after class, Annie approached him and made a request no man could easily turn down. David was momentarily stunned, then slowly stepped closer and responded.
I will give you a good grade. I will give you a very, very good grade. If you would just study.
He had rejected Annie's flirtatious advance, unaware that this decision would ultimately lead to him being sent to prison.